Hello everyone, Mr. Cross here. Hope everyone's well. So we all hopefully are aware now that we'll be starting to get some kind of normality in our lessons from the 15th of June onwards, and the school will have been in touch about this and we'll be telling you more about this as we approach that time. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I'd like these lessons to run and how much of a benefit these will be when we start them. So first of all, I just want to say a bit of a thank you to everybody for engaging so well with home learning at this difficult time. There's been lots of quizzes that you've done. We've gone over the USA unit, we've consolidated that, we've done exam questions, really high quality exam questions as well. Now, when we start the lessons on the 15th of June, there is going to be some support put in place for those people that have not completed some of the work. So if you have got a little bit behind certain aspects of the course, not to worry, we have produced packs for you that will support you with this when you do come back. And each week you'll be expected just to do a little bit of that work that you missed just to catch up. We're not going to ask you to do it all at the same time. We're going to be continuing with the Show My Homework quizzes even when you return, because I think they've been really beneficial, and we'll be continuing to do practice questions, just getting you ready for your GCSEs, and you'll be doing those after you've completed the lesson. So if you come into the lessons, which hopefully you will be, then you'll be able to complete the lesson, go home, go over the lesson notes, and then have a go at the quiz, and then you've revised it. Those of you that maybe at home for whatever reason, there might be people in different circumstances, then you'll still be provided with materials to stay on top of work, and you'll be given support and guidance to do these things. Hopefully, this isn't definite, it kind of depends on a few different factors. We'd like to do some kind of mock exam. It won't be a full mock exam, but we would kind of shorten it and just put a few questions in there from Nazi Germany and from the making of America, just to see where you're at. Nothing, major to worry about, just so that you kind of practicing those questions, going over them, and not missing out too much because of what's happened. Just to remind you as well, there is some challenge activities on Show My Homework. They run alongside the ones that you're doing. So if you're all up to date and you want to do some extra history, then there are activities on there, and if you want to do some practice questions, some extra ones, you can email them to me and I'll get them back to you as soon as I can. Okay, so today we're going to look at an exam question for living under Nazi rule on the dictatorship unit. So we're going to do a quick review of that to start off with, and we kind of planned to do this lesson for some of you coming in, because for a while we thought you might be in school, but I thought it'd be useful to go over that anyway with you. So what you would have been doing is you would have some pictures of some different events, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and you've got to look at them, name the event if you can, try and think about what the source suggests about that event if you can, add any knowledge to it. So let's have a look at some of those events here. So you've got 5 different events shown by these pictures. So if you want to pause it after I've kind of gone through an example with you, then you can have a go at doing this, discussing it with somebody else, maybe in the house, or just having a go at it, writing a few notes on it. You don't need to submit this, but you can just have a go at it. So the first one there is a written document. So I looked at that and I thought, oh, that possibly could be some kind of law, some kind of act. So then I thought, well, what key laws were there in the rise of Hitler? The Enabling Act. So I put, as I can see, it's a legal document. It suggested to me that it was a law. I know that this led to Hitler being able to remove democracy. And then if you want to pause it now, then have a look at these events here and see if you can have a guess, hopefully an educated guess on what some of these key events might be. So here are the events. So hopefully you've had a go at guessing those. So we've already said about the Enabling Act. We've got the Reichstag fire. So hopefully some of you noticed in the background, just around here, you can see the Reichstag, which is their version of the Parliament on fire. Hopefully you noticed Hitler there looking quite smug just there. We've got Hindenburg, maybe some people guessed there. And you've got there, I think it's the enabling act, but it's a bit small for me to look at that at the moment. And it's the whole source is about, is giving him power, and Hindenburg's kind of saying to him, well, if you mess this up now and don't get power, then there's something wrong. So that's the Reichstag fire. We've got the Jewish boycott of, the boycott of Jewish shops. So we can see here that we've got some, by the looks of it, SA officers. They look like they're brown shirts that are putting up some kind of sign on a shop window. That's, if you remember, part of Gleichschaltung, which was the Nazi coordination of German society and the start of terror. Speaking of terror, you've got Night of the Long Knives here. You can see quite a grim scene with the Nazis clearing up the mess, any kind of things that they hadn't sorted out, their internal enemies, they're clearing that up right here. And then we've got the removal of trade unions and replacing them with the German Labour Front as well, just there. So it says there in the corner, can you think about what dates these were and what order they're in? So if you want to pause it now and then have a think about what order you'd put these events in, that would be really good. Okay, so here's the order of the events. So it was Reichstag fire first, then it was the Enabling Act, the boycott of Jewish shops, the removal of trade unions, and the Night of the Long Knives. So the reason why I've done this is, while in most parts of the German course, and in fact the history course, you don't necessarily need to know the months and the years. For this part of the course, it is really, really useful to know them, at least the month and the year, particularly at the start in this rise of Hitler, because quite a lot happens in a short space of time and you need to have an idea of the order. So here we've got the Reichstag fire, and that's they use that to remove the communists. The Enabling Act here, they used that to get rid of opposition and being able to make a law without the consent of the Reichstag. The boycott of Jewish shops is part of Gleichschaltung. The removal of trade unions, and then the Night of the Long Knives. So it's important kind of to have an idea, a basic idea of the order of those events. Okay, so the question you're going to be looking at today is kind of to do with this, partly about this photograph really. So have a little look at this and think about some key questions. So one of the important skills that you need for history is to think about what questions you have about a particular source. So have a look at this and try and think of them and try and link them to second order concepts, so cause, consequence, diversity, similarity, difference, those types of things. So pause it, have a little look at the source, see if you can come up with maybe 3 questions, and I'll go through some examples on the next slide. Okay. So here's 3 questions that I came up with. So who were these individuals in the picture? So the boys in the shorts and the shirts, who were they? You might have a guess at what those people might be. Why are they being encouraged to burn books? So think about what the purpose behind this book burning is about, and what books do you think they might be burning? So you need to think about what the purpose of it is, and then hopefully you'll get an idea of that. Again, if you want to pause it and think about the answer to those questions, and then I'll go through the answers on the next slide. Okay, so the individuals were mainly students were encouraged to do this. Why were they being encouraged to burn the books? Well, these were seen as un-German books as part of a Nazi effort to coordinate Germany. So it was part of Gleichschaltung and to increase control and terror. If you think about, the visual of this as well as it being about, getting rid of certain books, if German people look at this, it's a sign, it's terror, isn't it? People look at this and think, well, it's pretty scary if you step out of line. This is the type of thing that they do. So what books are they burning? So the main type of books that they were burning were Jewish books, communist books, but really any books that were against the Nazis. Okay, so now to the exam question practice. So this week you're going to answer an exam question. You'll be expected to submit this question via Show My Homework or to me on that email address just there. Please complete the lesson and quiz from before half term though. So it's important to do that because that will help you with answering the question. Okay, I know some people had a few problems accessing the quiz and the last lesson. That's because there's been a changeover of groups, because we've been changing sims with groups to try and get you into school, because you'll be in different groups to what you normally are for it to work. That's caused a few issues, I think, on Show You My Homework. I've put those on, so have a look at the latest version of those, and hopefully you'll be able to access those and have a go at those. So I've given you till Sunday really to do that, just so you've got enough time to also do this by next Wednesday. So on question 6 in your exam, you're given a single source. They pretty much always start, what can source A tell us about? You need to refer to details in the source and your own knowledge, but the important part is the source. Really, you don't need to use an awful lot of your own knowledge. The main thing is you use the source to answer the question. If you do that, you'll get near to the 7 marks. Okay, you don't need to talk about limitations. Okay, students get quite critical of sources, but what the examiners are looking for actually is what can you learn, not what can't you learn. Okay, so I would encourage you not to do limitations because you don't need to get 7 marks. The quickest way to 7 marks, where you don't have to write an awful lot, you can do it in a paragraph. Okay, some people might write more, but you can get 7 marks in a paragraph, is to talk about the purpose. Okay, so what is the purpose of the source? Okay, so here's the source. What I'd encourage you to do is just have a go at answering these questions first of all. So pause it, read through the source, have a think about the answers to those questions. These are the type of things you might annotate on the source in your exam. So German men and women, the age of arrogant Jewish intellectualism is now at an end. You are doing the right thing at this midnight hour to consign the flames, the unclean spirits of the past. This is a great, powerful and symbolic act. Out of these ashes, the phoenix of a new age will arise. Oh century, oh science, it's a joy to be alive. So there's your source, and it's always read, actually I should have done this first, but read the provenance, who wrote it. So this is Joseph Goebbels. You know hopefully by now that he's the Minister of Propaganda, and he's speaking at a book burning in Berlin in May 1933. So first thing is, you know it's a book burning, so you should start to think about, well, Gleichschaltung. So what is Gleichschaltung? So have a little think about that. What event are they talking about? Well, the clue is it tells you in the provenance they're talking about book burning in there. While I'm on that, there are parts of that source you might read and think, I don't really understand that. The age of arrogant Jewish intellectualism is now at an end. Don't worry, if there's parts of that you don't understand, it's not a problem. As long as you get a general idea, you don't need to understand the whole source. Okay? How does this source show Gleichschaltung, and what other actions did they take to coordinate as part of Gleichschaltung? Okay. Have any other events been mentioned in this source? Okay, other than the book burning. Okay, so there's some of the things to consider. You're probably not going to use all of the answers to those in your actual exam question answer, but they're just things to consider to annotate your source first of all. Okay. Okay, and now you've got the question at the top. So it says, question 6, what can source A tell us about the Nazi policy of Gleichschaltung? Use details of the source and your own knowledge. Remember, the focus is on the source. If you can bring in a bit of your own knowledge about what was going on at the time, which you'll probably do naturally, that's great, but you don't need to write loads of your own knowledge. Trying to give yourself just 10 minutes. I don't want to receive big, long, massive essays with 5 paragraphs, please. You should be able to do this in 1 paragraph. If you want to talk about a couple of things, you might do it in 2. A really good answer will probably be just 1 paragraph. Okay, so, and then I want you to submit it on Show My Homework or via email, and the email address is there. You've got the mark scheme in the bottom left hand corner. Okay, it does talk about limitations, but again, please don't. I would just leave those alone. Just go on the benefits, what you can learn from the source. Okay, 7 marks. Explain the purpose, so you can think about what the purpose of the source is. That should help. And you've even got some sentence starters here. Okay, so and really if you follow those sentence starters, it should give you a good chance of getting 7 marks or thereabouts. Okay, So that's the exam question. Have a go at it, submit it, and then like I have been doing, I'll give you feedback as soon as I can.